There's absolute chaos happening in the One Piece world, but where are the main players? It's not so easy to answer. Still, we'll give it a try. So leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Of course, we're only interested in the big players, so to speak, who might still play a role in the endgame or in the One Piece story in general. And that's why this might be important, because many people have lost track. There are a lot of characters who could still show up by the end, like Doflamingo for example, who's still in Impel Down. But whether Impel Down will even remain standing until the end of One Piece, until the end of the story, is a question in itself, whether there might be another breakout. After all, Luffy, for example, promised Bon-chan he'd get him out. He's still there on level 5.5, having taken over Ivankov's position, but still. And if the sea level rises again during the final war, the prison will fill up, water will pour in from above, and it'll just overflow. So I wonder if they'll have to evacuate it if the sea level keeps rising. That's why I believe Doflamingo will definitely cross our path again in the story at some point. In some situation, I can't imagine it any other way. And since I believe in an Impel Down breakout, I also think Bon-chan will return to the story only when he breaks out, maybe during a mass breakout, or perhaps there'll be another breakout with the Straw Hats, though I can't really imagine that since, as I said, it's not exactly around the corner geographically. And Magellan is also a character many want to see again. He's strong. He has a paramecia fruit that somehow functions like a Logia. That fruit absolutely wrecked both Luffy and Blackbeard before the time skip. That was pretty intense. Especially in a war, it's very insidious to have someone with a poison paramecia fruit like that. So Magellan is very interesting, but there are also other characters who might be in Impel Down now. We know that Green Bull, Edward Weevil, the artificially created son of Whitebeard, who's supposedly endowed with Whitebeard's DNA or something, was captured. Most likely, at least, since he was taken by Green Bull, he could be held somewhere else, but I think Impel Down is still the go-to place. Same with King and Queen. They were also drained by Green Bull when he was in Wano, and when he fled after Shanks used his haki against Green Bull requested a large marine ship. Why would he need that? He flew there, so he could probably fly back, but most likely, it's because he wanted to take the prisoners, King and Queen, with him. So, it's quite likely that they're also in Impel Down now, King and Queen. An Impel Down 2.0 breakout or something to bring characters back definitely has to happen, and I can imagine it. Smoker is also celebrated by many, though you have to admit that after the time skip, he's not as impressive anymore, even though his smoke Logia is pretty cool. But you know, on Punk Hazard he took a beating. He was saved by Kuzan, thankfully, or he'd probably be long dead. He then wanted to take the kids from Punk Hazard to Vegapunk and all that, but we haven't seen him around much at all. Only briefly during the whole incident with Gar on Hachinosu on Beehive, where we saw that Sword, with Kobe and Hibari and the others, was there, and they contacted Smoker. Smoker was on his bike, speeding across the water somewhere in the New World, transporting a container behind him that looked frozen or like something was attached to it. So what's he transporting? Some kind of secret mission that Smoker's pursuing, and we'll probably find out soon where exactly he is geographically in the New World. It's hard to say. But I don't think he's too far from the marine base or very close to Hachinosu. So he's probably not in the territory where the Straw Hats might be soon, because don't forget the New World is big, sure, but the Straw Hats are already almost at the end, so to speak. They're already at Elbaf. There shouldn't be too many islands left. There's still Hachinosu, there's Winner's Island somehow, and Hachinosu is already one of the most important points for me. Also interesting right now because of the Rox D Zebek pirates. Then there's Lodestar. It's already very exciting what will get bundled up at the end. Monkey D Dragon is of course also interesting for many. Where is he? We don't know. Maryjoa is burning right now. Okay, that's a factor we need to consider. Someone is attacking Maryjoa right now. The Holy Land Imsama went to Elbaf specifically because the deployed Holy Knights, 4 in number so about half of them, are on Elbaf, and as I said, the place is burning. Imsama made the decision to quickly travel to Elbaf to call them back. Come on, finish up this stuff on Elbaf. We need to get back to Maryjoa because it's burning there. Someone's attacking it. Garling was already called back earlier because it's probably burning there, because the enemy is at the gates. Shanks' brother was called back earlier because it's more important there. So it's a very intense situation. It could of course be the Revolutionary Army, which is very likely attacking, right? They're the most natural enemy of the world government. Of course, we need to consider another factor, which we'll get to in a moment, but the Revolutionaries could currently be at Maryjoa. They were already there during the Reverie, but if they're not there, and we have to assume they're not, where we've always seen Dragon the last, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 chapters after Dressrosa, their actual revolutionary base, Baltigo Island, was destroyed by Blackbeard because Jesus Burgess sneaked there with a Vivre card, and they were exposed. Since then, they've just been on Mamoiro Island, Ivankov's island, And where is that? It's not in the New World. A lot of people probably thought it was. It's in Paradise, so in the first half of the Grand Line, where there are also a lot of crazy islands, but the New World's level is just on another scale. So I'm curious, how are they even supposed to get from point A to point B quickly? The question is Maryjoa Island closer to Maryjoa, or closer to Reverse Mountain if you look at it geographically? But in any case, it's not an island that Luffy and the Straw Hats might just stumble upon in the near future. That's the thing to keep in mind. But that's where Dragon's been chilling the whole time, not even in the New World. Where Enel is right now is of course also interesting for many, because we last saw him on the moon. When was that? It might be important for some to put into context. When did we see him on the moon? That was before the time skip. So, right after the events of Skypiea. That's when all that happened on the moon, with the little soldiers, the ancient city of Birka, the information, all of that. Before the time skip, so over 2 years ago, all these discoveries, and he has the ship, he has the fruit, he now has his little army of people. So it makes little sense that he hasn't come back down to the One Piece world in those 2 years. I believe he's already here. I just wonder if he's on the Blue Sea now, or if he's back on a sky island, maybe the destroyed sky island of Birka. Maybe he's settled there for the past year or so, the one he destroyed. Who knows, maybe he wants to rebuild something. He's gonna play a role. All the antagonists have popped up again in some way. I can't imagine that with all the info in this special side story he got, he won't play a role anymore. That makes little sense. So I believe he'll show up again. And honestly, it makes sense that he's already back on the planet, right? The question is just whether he's in the New World, Paradise, or maybe in one of the Blues, or perhaps on some sky island. Who knows? I'm definitely gonna love it when he shows up. Same with Urouge. The very last time we saw Urouge was at the balloon terminal, which is of course, ridiculously long ago. That was Kaido's introduction. He was bandaged at the balloon terminal, which also looked destroyed, whatever that place is supposed to be. And why Kaido was there and jumped off. Was he still wounded from a fight against Cracker, Big Mom's commander? Who knows? And what's he doing now? Is he really pursuing this Enel revenge plot, which is the old theory? His devil fruit power most likely appeared in the flashback with Silver's Rayleigh, who was skinny at first, took a hit, and then turned that damage into strength, and suddenly bulked up, like Urouge, even though he's already pretty broad. Maybe that's a little hint in the flashback. Oh look, Urouge's power showed up here. Maybe he's coming soon. I can always imagine that the upper level of Elbaf, the heavenly level, the treetop up there, might be the normal access point with a rainbow route or something to a sky island. I can totally imagine that, and maybe then Urouge, then Enews, then a bit more of that. The question is there even time for that? But Urouge is still missing, and he'll show up. Where he is geographically is hard to say right now, because we don't even know where the balloon terminal is exactly. It's just somewhere in the New World, floating in the air. And you want to know where Shanks is? I can tell you that, at least roughly. He was on Elbaf, then set off, destroyed Kid along the way to Gartel Island. Where that is, we don't know exactly. It's just in the New World, who would have thought, to deal with the Bartolomeo situation, because he burned Shanks' flags, and that's a matter of reputation for the entire pirate crew. The safety of the pirate crew's territory is essentially gone when the flag is burned. That's maximum disrespect, so they took care of it. Yasopp, Usopp's father, casually destroyed the entire Bartolomeo Club's ship, so their journey's over too. Shanks did say to Ben Beckman, "Come on, let's grab the One Piece," or something like that. So maybe he's headed somewhere else now after this Bartolomeo incident on Gartel Island in the New World, but it can't be too far away because they were on Elbaf, then got there somehow, and it's still in the New World. He's not on the other side of the globe, so theoretically, he's just around the corner. He might come back to Elbaf soon, I can imagine that anyway. It's Shanks Island. His ship is a Viking ship. Elbaf is the Viking island. He's coming back 100%, and he's just off dealing with this little conflict, so to speak, with Bartolomeo. So I'm super excited for Shanks and his crew, and then Yasopp too. They're all coming, but they were last on Gartel Island, in the New World. Of course, other important big players who are really strong like Mihawk, or, okay, Crocodile might not be that strong, but Buggy is one of the emperors. Where are they? They're on Karai Island, and 3 guesses where that island is. Exactly, in the New World. And that should actually be an island that's still open. Maybe even beyond Elbaf. It's always hard to say, because we don't have an official map or a route or anything with the islands laid out geographically. A data book for that would be awesome, but yeah, that island is still open with these major players. Buggy, okay, but imagine if he's really the successor now. How crazy would that be? That would be so intense, and I can totally imagine it. The Cross Guild in general is super intense. The fact that it even exists, and that they're putting bounties on Marines. Where does Buggy get all that money? Those billions? Did he really find Captain John's treasure? Could that be? I can imagine it. He's been wanting to find that treasure the whole time. unimaginable wealth, and now he can issue billion-berry bounties on admirals or whatever. So he's got a ton of money. Maybe he found it. And who knows what else was in there. Maybe it was also the Rox D. Zebek pirate's treasure. Maybe there was something special in that treasure. A key to something, who knows. Garling the brother, as I mentioned, was called back to Maryjoa. And of course, Imu-sama, as mentioned, is on Elbaf. So, theoretically, Imu's body might still be in Maryjoa, in the Room of Flowers or whatever, or there's that Phantom Room or whatever it was called, but the consciousness was somehow taken over by Gunko on Elbaf, by Imu-sama. So the question is Imu-sama on Elbaf or still in Maryjoa? Kind of both. Who knows? Imu-sama himself said that the body somehow weakens Imu-sama's powers. So it's not Imu-sama himself on Elbaf, but it's still pretty awesome, folks. So now it's your turn. What other characters are you interested in? Where could they be? Scopper Gaban, I don't need to include him, we know. Very cool, but Enel would still be an important point, I'd say, to have back in the story. You know how it is. I'm out for now, wishing you a wonderful day, dear people. Go all out.